Some jobs are just plain dirty. You've seen me do them. I've waded through things you wouldn't want to think about and cleaned messes you'd rather ignore. But there's another kind of dirty job out there, and it's one we all have to face sooner or later. It's the job of understanding extremism. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, and most people would rather just look the other way. But turning away from a problem doesn't make it disappear. In fact, it usually lets the problem get worse, festering in the dark corners of our country until it spills out into the open. That's what we're seeing today with extremist groups, and we can't afford to ignore the mess any longer. Extremism isn't just a political disagreement. It's not about who you vote for or which news channel you watch. It's about a belief system that sits so far on the edge of the spectrum that it sees everyone else as the enemy. These groups, whether they lean right. When we talk about extremists, we often hear the terms far right, far left. They sound like opposites. In some ways they are, but they share a dangerous similarity. Both are willing to break the rules of a civil society to get what they want. Let's start with the far right, driven by belief in racial or national superiority. They believe a specific group, usually white Christians, is the true heart of the nation. Others are seen as a threat. Think of the Proud Boys. Think of neo-Nazi organizations. Their ideology is wrapped in patriotism, but that patriotism excludes many Americans based on race on the other side, the far left. Driven by a belief in dismantling systems they see as oppressive. Think of Antifa. Facts are stubborn things. When we look at the actions of these groups, we can't just listen to what they say. We have to look at what they do. On the far right, the violence is often targeted and ideological. We saw this in Charlottesville in 2017. White supremacists marched with torches chanting racist slogans, leading to violent clashes and the tragic death of a counter-protester. We saw it on January 6, 2021, when a mob, including members of extremist groups, stormed the United States Capitol in an attempt to overturn an election. These are not random acts of anger. They are calculated attacks. The bombing of the federal building in Oklahoma City in 1995 by Timothy McVeigh was a massive act of anti-government terrorism rooted in far-right ideology. The mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018 was committed by a man who spouted anti-Semitic and anti-immigrant hate online. This brand of violence is often premeditated and designed to instill terror in specific communities: Jews, Black Americans, immigrants. It's a direct continuation of a long, dark history of hate crimes in our country. The far left, on the other hand, tends to engage in a different style of violence, often under the banner of direct action. During the protests of 2020, we saw instances where demonstrations were hijacked by smaller groups of militants dressed in black, known as black blocs. So let's get down to the brass tacks and answer the tough questions. Which group is more racist? Far-right extremism is fundamentally organized around racism, built on white supremacy, excluding others based on race or ethnicity. The far left is not built on racial superiority, which is more violent. It depends on how you measure it. Federal law enforcement and domestic terrorism trackers say far-right extremists have caused the vast majority of deadly attacks in the U.S. in the past decade. The far left tends to engage in more frequent, less lethal violence, like rioting and property damage. Which group is bigger? That's harder to measure. Far-right ideas have reached wider audiences in mainstream politics and media. Far-left extremist groups are generally smaller, more decentralized, but when they mobilize, they can appear larger and more influential. If both are extreme, can either bring the country together? No, unity can't be built on us versus them. The only way forward is rejecting extremism in all forms. Learn the facts, share the facts, help your neighbors understand them. That's how we start cleaning this mess.